Right, now we continue with our calculation. So in this one, we will use Excel's FV function to calculate the future value. So let's look at the following investment opportunity. We know the interest rate per year will be 12%. The number of years is 3. The initial investment is $400. And how much will you have at the end of the investment, right? So we can make this calculation or we can manually calculate it using financial calculator or use Excel, right? So our primary focus in this course is to use Excel to make that calculation. When we say there's a function which we call the FV function, right? So there are 2 ways that we can get this function. The first one is, again, we enter this equal sign. And if we go above, you see the insert function here. If we click it, so you can search for the function. And obviously, because the FV function is one of the functions that I'm using a lot, so it shows up here. Just in case it doesn't, I can just type in FV and click go. It will show up, right? So this is the FV function. If we double click, the function arguments will pop out, right? So there's a few information that we want to enter. So whenever we click one, so there's instruction or illustration for what is needed, right? So in this case, the first one, the rate. Rate is the interest rate per period, right? So that'll be easy. In our case, interest rate is 12%. We can simply click this one, D118, right? And we're done. The second one is the NPER. NPER, if you look at here, it says is the total number of payments periods in the investment, right? So you can click this one, D119, which is 3. The third one is payment, right? So if you look at here, it says payment is the payment made each period. It cannot change over the life of the investment. So far, payment mainly focus on if we're making investment every time period. Let's say in year 1, in year 2, year 3, year 4, all the years. But in our case, as of now, we only have one initial investment and we don't do anything else. So in this case, right, so there's actually no payment, right? We can either enter a 0 or we can just leave it, do nothing, right? So that's 2 ways that we can do. The next one is PV. PV is the present value or the initial investment. In our case, our initial investment is $400, right? The very last one is type. Type is the value representing the timing of the payment, right? So note here, we say we don't have payment. We're going to talk about payment and constant investment in chapter 6. But for now, we're just going to ignore it. Again, we don't have to worry about type here. So all we're done here is okay. If we click OK, so you will notice this number, $561.97 is in parentheses, right? So that indicates this is the negative number, which in Excel, if we double click here, because we're saying this initial investment is $400, right? So we will have one positive present value, and then we'll get a negative future value, right? If we want to get a positive future value, we can just put a negative sign here in front of the D100, and we're done, right? So we're done. So we'll get the positive number, right? Again, as of now, it doesn't really matter we have a positive or negative future value. But in the later chapters, we're going to distinguish whether this money is positive and negative, right? So but in a convention, we want to have a positive future value in this case. All right, so let's look at the last example in this chapter, in this section 5.1, right? So consider William Sword purchase of Alaska from Russia, right? So how much does it cost this guy? It's $7.2 million, right? And if this price is used to make investment, how much this will be worth today? Let's say we're making a 10% interest rate, right? every year, and it 157 years, right? So again, if we want to apply this FV function, right? So now I don't have to insert the function because I'm quite familiar with it. I will just say the rate. You see the rate. Okay, I will just click 10 and comma. Number of period NPR is F154. Okay, and comma. And this one is for payment. We say we can either say this is 0, or we can just skip it by put another comma here. So the second comma is important because after the comma, we will go to the next input, which is PV. So the PV, we want to have a negative present value, which is 7.2 million, so that we want to have a positive value today. So the very last one is the type, right? We don't have to worry about it. We say this is for payment. We're going to talk about it later. So we are done by using the close parenthesis. If we do this, press enter, so you'll see this 7.2 million at 157 years ago is worth of over $22 trillion as of today. That's all we want to talk about in section 5.1.